Weight loss. It needs to be fast and sustainable. Noom GLP-1 starts at just $149 and ships to your door in 7 days. Take it from Marcos, who's loving his journey with Noom GLP-1.
I'm getting to where I want to be. I'm in such a good place right now, and I'm very confident that I'm going to be able to continue this weight loss, this journey, and really make a true lifestyle change.
Don't believe it? Take it from Cam, who's gaining more confidence with Noom GLP-1.
I really am starting to feel better. Like, I feel a lot lighter. I feel a lot happier. I feel a lot more confident. I just feel a lot more like myself. I don't feel so bogged down every day.
$149 GLP-1s? Now that's Noom Smart. Noom, the smart way to lose weight. Get started with Noom GLP-1 at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Real Noom users compensated to provide their story. Individual results may vary. Not all customers will medically qualify for prescription medications. Compounded medications are not reviewed by the FDA for safety, efficacy, or quality.
I like that new theme song.
Dude, we're just sitting here bobbing our heads the whole time.
We should make bobbleheads.
We should make bobbleheads.
It's baseball season, right? Is among us. You're wearing your Red Sox shirt.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It starts.
Yeah, I wish I would have known. I would have worn my Oakland Athletics.
Well, you know, some of us are real fans. What can I say? What?
Really? Listen, I'm finally warm.
Yeah.
From last week.
Yeah. Did you make it out of the blizzard okay? I mean, honestly, I didn't think that was going to keep you pinned in like that, but they canceled your flight, which is a shame. Dude, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
No you, no Sacco. It was weird last week.
You still made it happen. I couldn't, and what's funny is I couldn't get a signal to call.
Well, you were in the middle of nowhere, so.
Yeah, well, I was trying not to freeze in my cockpit.
We've said too much. Anyhow. Yeah, dude, it was the weirdest motion because I was like, all right, we kind of had a plan. We had talked on the phone earlier when you first called and said you couldn't make it, and we knew Sacco was going to be off. So I kind of formulated a plan. I'm like, all right, we'll kind of do a clip show.
Kind of a best of.
Where
we came from, just kind of,
little clips, some funny clips and all that stuff. I did the question of the night last week. And then something amazing happened. We had a pretty good show. People were chatting it up in the chat room, and we're going back and forth. At the end of it, we had a guy call, and I lost it. I just absolutely lost it. I tried to compose myself, but he was just so insane that I couldn't help myself.
And through clip.
Oh, you have to listen to last week's show.
I don't listen to our show. Seriously, why would I listen to it?
And we were having a pretty good debate, and people in the chat room were having a good debate. It was healthy, with disagreement, that's fine. And then this guy came on, he said, I'm a socialist, but I believe in the Second Amendment, but I just don't think it should apply to pistols or handguns.
Okay.
And I think handguns should be banned, but everything else, I think everyone should be able to have landmines and all that stuff, but I'm a socialist.
Okay. So what's the problem? Why would you lose that guy?
Because then I said to him, well, the whole reason for protecting any and all under the Second Amendment is because once you say it only affects this portion of firearms, if you will, then they can eventually change that to this portion. That was my whole basis of my argument,
which we've
discussed a billion times over. But it was to the point where no matter what I said, you could hear him breathing fast. And I don't mean fast. I mean like rabbit being chased by a wolf fast. Like,
right.
And then he started. His name was Evan. And then he started screaming that he was a farmer at one point. I thought
was Evan. You said he was a socialist, correct?
Yes.
Was he a national socialist?
I didn't get into it, and I'll tell you why. Because at first I thought it was a prank call.
Okay.
But it got to the point that Rooster had to call back in. He'd called earlier in the show, and Rooster had to call back in, and Rooster was trying to be reasonable.
Was it somebody from the Obama administration?
Not at all.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
Okay, and it was not a national socialist, or you don't know?
I'm not 100% on the national socialist. I don't think it was
they seized power in Germany a while ago.
I don't think...
What? I'm not making this stuff up.
I don't think it was somebody from the Obama administration. I don't know if he was a national socialist, but man...
Okay.
It was a fun call. It was like the last 6 or 7 minutes of the show. So if you get a chance, give it a call. My thanks to Rooster from conservativeoutcry.net for helping me out last week.
Now...
Oh, and Tammy J called in last week, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I missed Tammy.
She called because you weren't here, she said. I'm just kidding. She didn't say that, but she meant it.
Of course she did. So, now, this is something interesting. I've actually had the opportunity to think about this. Now, we have argued on this show, both of us, that there is no weapon that should be banned because people should be able to have the same weapons as the military in order to fight tyranny, blah, blah, blah. Correct?
Yeah.
What about nuclear material?
What about it?
I love the look on your face right now. You're like a monkey doing a math problem. This is hilarious. Should people be able to possess nuclear material? If the government has nuclear material to be able to make nuclear weapons, should a private citizen be able to nuclear materials because it is the same that the government has? Yes. Why?
Because if it's the weapons grade that's being used for weapons to defend ourselves against tyranny,
Okay. So does the government have a right to regulate like hazardous material, do you think?
Do I think?
Yes. Should they regulate hazardous material?
Wow, that's a good question.
And so then how do you classify nuclear? Is it classified as hazardous material or is it classified as a weapon under the Second Amendment?
I would have to say you could argue that the weapons grade is specifically towards weapons.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
I'm asking. I'm looking. This is one of those things where you like dropping stuff on me sometimes, so I decided to just get your thoughts on this.
I like I said,
should explosives be regulated? So you have somebody who's in a neighborhood living a couple doors down from a school. They're making explosives. Should that be regulated because, hey, the military has it? Or should it be where they can just purchase the weapons after the explosives are made so they can purchase a hand grenade or whatever it is?
Yeah.
But maybe not be able to mess with it themselves. So that should be regulated.
No, you should be able to buy them.
You should.
Business taxes. We're stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Be able to purchase them, but not. It should be regulated in the sense of you cannot build an explosive device on your own, correct?
Right, the manufacturing process.
Okay.
Because here's the way I look at it. The manufacturing process is actually the more dangerous part of the process.
Okay. So I don't know. I've never made explosives, but you sound like you may have some experience in this.
Does Mentos in a Coke bottle count?
So would that be the same for nuclear material then? Would you be okay with a private?
You can buy the weapons grade, but you can't develop the weapons grade uranium.
So you can't develop the weapon, but you would be okay with a private person purchasing and owning a nuclear weapon?
Does the federal government have them?
Yes.
Then yes.
Okay. I'm curious. Anybody else out there that wants to call in and give their 2 cents worth? I'm kind of curious.
347-205-9399. Let's see where folks are going to go with this one.
Hey, interesting topic of discussion, correct?
It's a very interesting
because
topic.
there is a reasonable argument that can be made either way. Hey, if you believe that people should have the same weapons as the military, you can make an argument that, yes, they should be able to have a nuclear weapon, just like a nuclear aircraft carrier or whatever the case is. But I think there's a very sane argument to be made also for the negative side of that.
I can't disagree with you. It's an intelligent argument to have.
Speaking of intelligent argument, what about our friend Uncle Joe?
So Slackjaw Joe, 2 weeks ago he was on some web chat show talking about home defense, and he said, I'm better off with my shotgun,
double-barreled shotgun right?
versus an AR-15, and women are better off with the shotgun. It's better suited for a lady. And then he's talking about, he tells his wife that if somebody comes on property out where they live in the middle of nowhere, the best thing she can go out and do is fire 2 shots in the air, which I took immediate issue with.
Right.
One, you're not supposed to fire a warning shot every single...
Why not?
Because you don't know where that shot's going to land.
Oh, okay. So you're being responsible.
Right. So
okay.
you're not. Any modern training says you're not supposed to fire a warning shot.
What about if you fire a warning shot into a berm or a ditch or down the ground?
It ricochets. You're still responsible for that round.
So into a berm, into a dirt berm, it's not going to ricochet.
You don't know that though. Is it 100% though?
It's what 100%?
Is it 100% that it won't ricochet?
Absolutely
not.
Okay.
It's not 100%, so why would you take that risk? So
I wouldn't. I'm just asking.
No, but that's why they tell you not to do that. Number 2, if you have a double-barrel shotgun,
right,
and there's a bad guy on your front porch, and you go running out like Uncle Joe would and say, "You on out of here!"
Right,
and you fire 2 shots in the air,
right,
that guy's going to know that you no longer have any more ammunition.
Well, not only that, but you discharge 2 rounds of double-aught buck in the air, and that's 18 rounds discharged because 1 round of double-aught buck has 9 pellets in it.
Was it William Tell who said I shoot my arrow in the air? Is that whole where it lands, I know not where? It's that whole kind of...
I have no idea why you're...
I don't know either, but either way.
Listen, you're confusing me right
now.
So that was... So his whole thing is, hey, discharge 18 rounds, right? 18 different projectiles.
Yep.
2 rounds of double-aught buck. Just discharge them in the air, and now you're accountable for 18 individual rounds that could go wherever.
Anywhere. Who knows?
Right, anywhere. And it's a far less accurate...
What if it hits the cop that's tracking the guy that's sitting on your front porch? He's been following him, trying to catch him. You never know.
Or because somebody else called on skullduggery around.
Now, I'm not talking ill against shotguns. No. Shotguns, if you're trained and used appropriately, are very effective, especially for home defense, actually. They can be used quite well. So Slackjaw Joe decided he hasn't done enough to help the firearm owners in America.
Okay.
And he essentially...
Gives an interview to Field and Stream.
And let's see, where's the exact quote, because it's worth it. Well, my shotgun will do for your AR-15 because you want to keep someone away from your house. Just fire the shotgun through the door.
Yeah!
Fire 2 through the door, huh, Joe? That is outstanding.
I wonder if he would ever go hunting with Cheney.
Oh, yeah. That would be an interesting hunt. Cheney'd be shooting him in the face, and he'd be shooting somebody in he'd be shooting the driver through the door of the limousine on the way there. My God. Joe, you're the vice president. You took a ton of heat for your whole fire 2 in the air. A ton of it. When you went to interview with Field and Stream, somebody had to go on you and went, all right, Joe, listen, I know we've gone through this with a bunch of other topics that you've discussed. Let's bring it down to shotguns. What you can and cannot say. Here's a list. Go. Whatever you did when you studied for the debate, whatever U-Haul truck they hid you in for 2 weeks and just drilled information into your head, they might need to do that more for shotguns because he apparently is not very good. Imagine if it's the pizza guy, just for a second, and you go to Joe's house. What you don't know is Joe obviously has no idea how to answer the door. Instead of looking through the peephole, You ring the doorbell with your pizza in hand, 2 rounds, boom, mozzarella cheese everywhere.
Well, yeah. Well, here's something that I found interesting, though.
That doesn't just seem a little ludicrous?
Of course it does. The whole thing seems ludicrous. And you know, honestly, the whole thing goes to show his ignorance in the matter because...
I'm glad you specified in this matter.
Well, because this is what we're talking about right now. It shows his ignorance in the matter as far as ease of handling a shotgun and accuracy and being responsible for rounds that you send downrange versus an AR-15, which is far more accurate, far more easy to use. You're sending 1 round downrange every time you're depressing the trigger, as opposed to if you're loaded with double-aught buck, 9 per
shell.
Yeah, per shell. So this just goes to show you that, hey, the liberals are not the more responsible people when it comes to guns, because he's basically saying, put a round through the door before you can see your target, before you can identify what it is you're shooting at. You don't know where your rounds are going. What if some wingnut liberal Democrat goes out and gets a double-barreled shotgun, has kids sleeping in the next room, and hears somebody outside, and now they send a couple rounds through the wall, and God forbid, because this stuff buckshot will go through a wall, some innocent person gets hurt or killed. The irresponsibility in the statement just kills me. And another thing he said actually had me kind of troubled. And in this Field and Stream interview, he said that anyone who needs a 30-round magazine, essentially, this isn't a direct quote, but anybody who needs a 30-round magazine is a danger to themselves. Now, here's why I found that interesting, because right now they're talking about mental health, right, being one of the exclusions from gun ownership. So if they're using this term, danger to themselves, which is anytime you talk about any kind of like criminal, insane, or any kind of dangerous mental health issue, danger to themselves or others is a pretty common term and a pretty common reason for a mental health hold or evaluation. So if the left, or if Joe is throwing this out, and this is kind of a buzzword that the left is going to start using, and we touched on this in previous shows, who determines who's a danger to themselves or others? And if they're now saying, and by them I mean Biden, and I guarantee he's just the one that's thought of this, that anybody who feels they need a 30-round magazine is a danger to themselves, is that going to start some kind of traction, some kind of trend in the mental health profession that's automatically going to be some kind of reason? Well, if you think you need 30 rounds,
you must be insane.
You must be a danger to yourself, and now maybe firearms ownership is in danger. Hey, call me a conspiracy theorist, but
well, and he went on too, and this is my serious.
It's a question, though. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's a question.
Absolutely.
The choice of wording was very interesting.
Everything should be questioned at this point. It's just like it would be if there was a Republican in the White House or a conservative in the White House. But he went on to say, if
you have as many questions, I don't think.
If you can't get not certainly Second Amendment, we would still have questions. If you can't get a bear or a deer.
Thank you. I didn't know what a deer
and
was.
4 or 5 shots, you get a problem. So now he's just, I don't know the context of the question if it was about hunting itself, but now he's trying to push it that way of saying, hey, you know what? The Second Amendment's just for kind of hunting and sporting. You know what I mean?
That's their position.
But
their position is for like limited self-defense and hunting and sporting. Their position is not for an armed populace, which ends up forming the militia under the United States Code, and for defense against a tyrannical government or against any kind of other foreign incursion or anything like that. That's not their mindset.
No, I understand that now. Thank you.
So that's going with it.
No, I understand. It's just it kills me that he'll put it out there in text and nobody, I don't know, people just don't react like I expect them to. I know those of us who, say, attended the Day of Resistance rally,
right,
were completely upset and offended by it because it's just like, hey, pal, you're just making this up as you go and you're doing anything you can to push your agenda and you're not even thinking about the Second Amendment, where other people are just like, does exactly what they always do when Joe says something stupid. Oh, it's just Joe. He's fine. He's not going to hurt anyone. Who's Joe going to hurt? It's just
shooting shotguns through a door and not seeing what he's shooting at. Joe's not going to hurt anybody.
So, Vice President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President. He's number 2, heartbeat away.
Heartbeat away. Hey, don't you remember when he had on the campaign, he was saying, "Hey, remember me in 2016." Hey, Joe, you don't got to worry about that. They're trying to repeal the term limits on the president anyway, pal. So.
Hey, I
Speaking of that, is Obama 2016?
As a matter of fact, he is, and I was just
hello, welcome to the show.
And I was just honestly wondering if he would change his name to Biden 2016.
You know what? I like having Obama 2016 in the room.
I do too. At least he has intelligent arguments.
No, he does. And look, robust debate is what this country was built on. We absolutely encourage it. And I just like the name, Obama. I remember when he was Obama 2012.
And he bumped it up.
I guarantee he changed it to Obama 2016 just to piss off all the conservatives. And I think that is absolutely hilarious.
Well, he can certainly call in or answer us if he wants. The phone number tonight is 347-205-9399. I like having him, too. I like having somebody from the other side. Like I said, he doesn't get into... he's one of those guys I could sit down and have a beer with and have a discussion with. He doesn't get into the BS part of it. He just has a legitimate argument. He tries to have his points, why he has his reasoning. I can appreciate that even if I don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
So
with everything. Certainly some things we've agreed with him on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to lose some listenership over that.
No. Because that's just the times that he wasn't wrong.
Hey, remember that was...
So, and yet another...
Coffee is outstanding, by the way.
The Dunkin' Donuts? Yeah, how can it be wrong?
It can't be.
It tastes so good when it hits your lips. It tastes so good going down.
It tastes so good.
So in Arkansas, another newspaper put out a list of people with CCW, CCLs, concealed weapons permits.
Yeah.
So that didn't, we still getting the people from liberal newspapers who have possessed weapons and, print the list so if you want to break into a house, we can go and get guns.
Now,
happened yet again.
Interesting question. If one of those gun owners' houses was broken into...
we asked this with the New York one.
Yeah.
Can she be charged? You would have to prove that her intent, I think, was trying to assist people.
How about civilly liable?
I would say civilly liable, absolutely.
Perhaps.
Absolutely. Because everyone would say Freedom of Information Act, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. Freedom of Information Act, the person who does the crime would have to make the overt effort to get the information.
Mm-hmm.
By her getting it in irresponsible manner, just distributing it to everybody.
Because what is the purpose?
She's now almost created the opportunity.
Right. So
now, if she wanted to break it down to, age groups, nameless. Men versus women, nameless. Okay, that's fine. I don't agree with the fact that you're even putting it in there.
But you don't have to mean that because you're showing a demographic.
Right, absolutely.
Something.
You're maintaining an argument. That's fine. You're also not being irresponsible and putting people in harm's way.
Right.
But and I understand when I was talking to my friend about that, my friend was like, well, it's Arkansas. Everyone's probably has a gun. And I said, well, that's not the point. The point is you go out and start listing people that it's such a hot-button debate. Why don't we start going out and, say, California, listing all the people that have the permit to grow medical marijuana and their addresses? Yeah. Can you imagine what would happen? Oh, my God. You're against people getting healthy. These people's houses got broken into and all the pots got taken away. Or blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. So be responsible, especially if you're in the media. Listen, if you're a private person, you want to go seek that information through the Freedom of Information Act. Okay,
I have a problem with that information out there.
I do too.
I have a problem with guns even being registered.
I do too.
As far as
I'm talking about
maintaining any kind
the
of
way the system...
background checks, I'm okay with.
Right, mental health, we've discussed that before.
Right, having, requiring guns if children are home to be locked up, I'm okay with that.
Reasonable.
But maintaining a list of registrations and gun owners and so forth, I'm absolutely against it. Okay, why aren't we maintaining a list of everybody who exercises their First Amendment right? I
understand, and I agree with you. But my point is, if you are the system that's in place now as we speak, I'm not discussing changing the system. Mm-hmm. As it sits right now, if somebody went in and said, hey, you know what, I want to know who, and they have to submit their information, You know, it's almost, believe it, almost like the sex offender list, where if you want to go in and get all the specific information, you have to go show your ID. They write it all down, find out who has it, and pushes it back out. Same type of thing. If the average person wants to do that, fine. But when you start posting it, especially if you're a media outlet, it's irresponsible.
I agree with you.
And it's just not necessary, and it's an agenda pusher. It's ridiculous what people will have to go forth and do to try to push their agenda, and the people that they'll put in harm's way.
I know in a couple states there's some legislation being proposed to protect that. Not all of the states, which I hope to see at some point. I know California will never have that, probably, nor will Massachusetts or Illinois, probably. By the way, did you see where Obama wanted Chicago gun laws as a model for the nation?
Yeah, that would be outstanding. No, I think that would be a great idea.
Crime
It's been working
so low in Chicago, that would be just awesome.
Attaboy, Barry. That's all I'm going to say now. Every single time some knuckleheaded statement comes out of his mouth, it's just attaboy, Barry. Attaboy.
Hey, are you going to send him a Red Sox jersey?
I should. I would.
You know he's a White Sox fan.
You know what? Let's just send him some of our Sackhead swag. Let's send it out. Yeah, let's send it to him.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
We've said it before.
We're already on the watch list, I'm sure.
I'm sure we are. How's it going, guys? I hope the coffee's hot tonight. Thanks for staying up late with us, Secret Service. How many listeners do you have?
We talk so much crap about them.
That's true. How many listeners do you have? Well, about 30 to 40 government agents. Why? All good guys, though.
I watched a great movie that I actually forgot how good it was. Absolute Power.
That was a really good movie.
That was a really good movie.
Absolutely. The
with
great
Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
And those Secret Service listening in on us and government agents, doing some shady things maybe prompted that movie. It was pretty good. Most of them were good guys and good gals.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Service. We just like giving them a hard time. But if you're spying on American citizens, you can go, what?
You know what? I don't have time.
Look, I know we have a lot to get to later on in the show.
I got so much to get to. I want to get into the whole Woodward thing at some point.
We want to get into the budget and the sequester.
You have to get into the sequester.
And we also have to get into your little man on the street thing.
Yeah, I took a resistance rally. I had some interviews and took a ton of pictures. If I could.
Really?
Yeah.
Pitchers and catchers. It's you took a ton of pictures because it's baseball.
I took a whole bunch of pictures with us, and then we had a game of catch in the field before the event.
Perfect. Left all the catchers behind.
It was magical. Well, I mean, it's still pitchers were reporting early that day. Catchers were still stretching. What? No, we talked to. We'll play after break. Talked to Tiffany Rugner. She's the executive director of Women's Warrior Pack, and she also was one of the organizers for Day of Resistance. The Sacramento event was awesome. They had over 700 people, so that was really impressive. So we'll have an interview with her, a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Zachariou. I told him when I interviewed him that I was going to botch his name, and he laughed. Great story about his parents. He's a first-generation American. And then Mark Williams, I did not interview him, but I got his opening speech. He was the MC for the event. He was part of the Tea Party Express for a long time. So we'll talk about that after the break. But first, the first thing after the break, first. The first thing going to be before the break is give out our phone number. 347-205-9399. Why?
And then
Right. After the break, Russo's going to call in from conservativeoutcry.net.
Seriously, where has that guy been?
I know, you missed him.
I have missed him so much. I mean, how many times have I told you just in the last even few weeks because he hasn't called it? I was like, where has Rooster been?
I know.
I've checked his site. I've missed him. Rooster, I'm glad you're calling in tonight. Seriously, the last few weeks I've asked to Sean about how I haven't had a chance to talk to you. You haven't called in. Do you not like us anymore? Do you not love us? You don't send flowers. You don't sing us love songs. No poems. My feelings were kind of starting to get hurt. But no, I love talking to Rooster. He's a very smart guy, although he may not sound it, but trust me, he is. And a good friend of ours. I'm glad he's calling in tonight.
So we'll have Rooster after the break, and then we'll get into Bob Woodward and discuss that as well. And then we'll have the interview. So we'll be back in a minute with Sackhead. What's our radio show? ConservativeOutcry.net show? No, it's Sackhead's radio show.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey folks, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank the men and women of our armed forces, as well as our first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for making this country and our communities a better and safer place. God bless.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. You know, we often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, POLITIGAL Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PolitigalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PolitigalNetwork.com or Twitter at PolitigalUSA.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at ConservativeOutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that's the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. ConservativeOutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on ConservativeOutcry.net.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank our men and women in uniform of the armed forces. Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank our men and women. Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank the men and women of our armed forces, as well as our... God.
You going to mention me this time?
Thank you, Sean. You said mention you, right?
Oh.
You totally need to keep that as an outtake.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And welcome back to the show. 347-205-9399 is the phone number. We did have a... If you're interested in the chat room, or give us a call, and how is the sequester going to affect the average American, if it'll affect the average American?
We already were sequestered this year.
Sequestration. Just the word castration just comes to mind whenever I hear that word. And it makes me think that, the Fed spending was castrated a little bit. So,
but not really.
No, just not really. We're going to get into that.
Joke.
So on the phone with us right now is the word for Rooster. It doesn't matter. Rooster's on the phone. Rooster for ConservativeOutcry.net. How you doing, brother?
How you guys doing? Clint, I miss you too.
Here's your intro.
Red, white, and blue. That's a joke, son. A flag waver.
I love that.
That took me minutes of my time to make just for you, Rooster.
I appreciate it. Clint, I missed you too.
How you been?
I've been good, but Sean knew where I was. I'm surprised he didn't tell you. Yeah.
Sean doesn't tell me anything. We meet once a week. Our pre-production meeting is about 5 minutes. 3 of that we're drinking, and then we just kind of go on the air.
It's hockey season, guys, and my boy plays hockey.
And we wish him well.
Wish him well.
Hey,
yeah,
Rooster, you tweeted out earlier. You tweeted out, as you said, a teaser, which I did pick up on. I
did.
You said you found something in the federal budget that was going to Clint crazy, and now you have to tell us what it is.
I'm going to tell you. And by the way, Andrea of the Andrea K Show says she'll DM. She says she'll DM you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
She too is worried about today's youth.
By the way, you were a guest on the Andrea K Show this week, were you not?
I was, and I was very nervous. And I'm not nervous on your show because I can't cuss.
I mean, you're not supposed to cuss on our show either, but between you and Clint, it's like hanging out with two drunken sailors.
Fucking right.
Very, very good.
Ruined it.
All right, now I promise I'm not going to rant, guys, but you got to give me just one before I go into what's going to drive Clint crazy. Now, people always ask me where I come up with some of the crazy stuff I write, and my answer is always, it just comes to me. Now, for instance, tonight I watched Rambo. Old movie. Everybody's seen it. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, but go on.
I bet you, no, you don't. Because it wasn't the movie that got me. I don't want to go out and shoot up a shopping mall now. It was the numerous commercials for the new erotic love toy marketed by Trojan. And hence, a blog post is born. Now, I'm probably going to reference it.
Now, hang on a second. I'm curious why you would be interested in an erotic toy by Trojan for your own personal use.
No, I'm not. It was the fact that...
Judge, don't judge. It's okay. You don't need to justify anything to me.
What do you expect? I'm sitting on one now, as we speak.
Good, clean family radio here. Good conservative talk radio on the Sackheads Radio Show.
Okay. All right. As I promised, I told you guys I spent the day going through the federal budget, and I focused on 2012 spending. Now, Clint, I know what you're going to say. Let's forget about that for a second. There was no 2012 budget. But the problem we have is clear as day. We spend more money than we take in.
Yes.
Now, I know you were expecting more based on the message I sent you earlier, and I promise I'm going to live up to that in just a second. But I say this because it really is as simple as it sounds. And it hits you right in the face when you look at the second largest single line item in the federal budget. And what do you think that is? Take a guess.
Welfare?
No.
I would say Medicare.
Interest on the public debt. Roughly $450 billion in 2012. And that's when rates are low. Imagine what it's going to be when rates go up, and you know they're going to go up if we keep printing money the way we are. Even if we slow down growth, and I know you're going to speak to that later on when you talk about the sequester. $450 billion, and that's not even the shadow fund. That's just the money that we owe to China and Germany and Japan and everybody else that buys our bonds. It's not when Social Security invests in the United States. This is money we actually owe to other people.
So our second biggest spending...
Single line item. Now, if you total up all of the Medicare line items, it's going to be bigger. But we're talking $450 billion of a roughly $3.2 trillion budget.
And then that's gone up. In 2011, it was around 226 billion, I believe, just the net interest, right?
Yeah. And we keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Now with that said, I blame Republicans and Democrats, and if they don't get their heads out of their asses and start thinking about things the way us common folk do, the ones that make under $250,000 a year, and how we run our households, we're doomed.
Well, now let me ask you this: How much is federal spending, do you think, like on all the different departments, Department of Agriculture, Commerce, Education, all that stuff? Would you say significant?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if we eliminated some of that spending, do you think that could have some kind of impact?
Yeah,
and I'm
it
taking
could.
it somewhere here. Okay. Now, under the executive branch, the executive has pretty specific powers outlined in the Constitution. The president does, correct? He's commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He can make treaties with the advice and consent of the Senate. 2/3 have to concur, appoint nominations, fill up vacancies that happen during recess by the Senate, and so forth. Right? Only a few specific things that he's responsible for. Correct?
Mm-hmm. And you see that in the budget as an unforeseen expense.
Here's my question, Rooster. What do you think would happen if a president got in there and said, you know what, I am eliminating all departments under the executive branch that I have no constitutional authority. For example, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, which is really Congress's job, I believe, if you look under the Constitution, to regulate commerce, so maybe commerce gets moved. Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Urban Development. So what happens if an executive just went in there and said, hey, you know what, Congress, you can keep funding these, but I'm eliminating them because I have no constitutional authority to establish and maintain these administrative, basically, branches of government that fall under the executive. Do you think that would have an impact?
It would have a huge impact, but I'm not as far right as you are on that. I think government does good work. I mean, I think there's a lot of good government employees out there.
I'm not saying there's not a bunch of. I'm not saying there's not good government employees. What I'm saying is we have moved from a constitutional republic that has specific defined responsibilities under the Constitution, and that has grown during the program in the past 100 years or so into an administrative state, to where now our elected representatives are kind of looked at as the voice of the people, and yet these administrative agencies are almost enforcing their rules, administrative rules, that have the force of law, and I have a major problem with that.
And I fully agree with that statement, but let's be frank. 100 years has gone by, and it is what it is. Now,
but it doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right. But here's the surprise I promised you.
Why can't the president come in and eliminate? President coming in, they're his departments, they fall under his purview. Why cannot a president come in and say, you know what, I have no constitutional authority to maintain these. There is no constitutional authority to have these agencies under the executive. They're not under my responsibility. They are unconstitutional, and cut them.
Honestly, any president who tried to do that would probably be impeached.
Well, for what? What could they? I don't think he'd be reelected unless the economy really turned around. But what could he be impeached for? What crime is he?
He'd have to do it early before the election. He'd have to do it really early in his presidency. Even
I'm not arguing. I mean, everything you're saying is true, Clint. But here's what really jumped out at me in the budget, and I'm just going to say this, and then and I know that this is just going to get Clint going. With the exception of Social Security, and let's just set aside our beliefs about the program itself, because I actually believe in Social Security, but that's for another discussion. With the exception of Social Security, every other agency within the government in 2012 was reported as on budget for the year, and that includes discretionary spending. Now, the statement itself is kind of hard to believe, and let's just simply take the data at face value and forget the fact that we really didn't even have a budget in 2012. But the Senate
hasn't put a budget together in a long time.
Yeah, but the mindset within the government is if you don't spend it, you won't get it next year.
Which is a problem.
That is a huge problem.
That is a huge, huge problem. I touched on this a bit when I was on Andrea's show with my reference to Christmas in September. And basically what that is when any money left in the coffers is expended. But that's really just administrative costs. So if you're like a Xerox guy and you are lucky enough to have a government contract, that's your Christmas, because you're going to get a new copier. They're going to spend all their money. But it's much deeper than that, because that statement itself goes beyond administrative funds. So maybe that's where the discussion about the budget needs to start.
Yeah, well, it has to be one of those.
No, I'm sorry, go on.
Rooster. No, I'm just saying it's going to be one of those things where, and I've heard so many state, local, and federal employees say this at one time or another. You don't spend it, you don't get it next year. And if you give some back, they give you less next year. I understand why they need to get more. I understand if you're running an operation and there is a percentage increase based on cost of equipment, tools, whatever, depending on what sector they're in. I understand the thought that you have to spend as much as you possibly can because I think the fiscal year ends in July for most government agencies. You got to spend it by July, and that's why you see ridiculous spending trends in May, April, May, and June. Trips, all that stuff go through the roof in the state, like federal and local government.
I think what we're discussing is a result of something that really goes to the root of the problem, in my opinion, and that is we do not have principled leaders in Congress or in the presidency. We don't have, and I'm talking Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. We don't have people representing us, representing the people that have the testicular fortitude to stick with the law, to stick with the Constitution, and to do what is right. They want to continue on with this administrative state that we have, and grow government and think that government is the be-all, end-all. And it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. Look, we've had a large government since Woodrow Wilson, and Reagan and Calvin Coolidge, I think, are the two presidents that have really tried to attack some of that stuff and did a fairly good job. But you look at where we are now, and even the branches of the executive that I named off, just a few, and each of those have so many different sub-departments and subgroups and that have these budgets that we're putting these expenditures out. Nobody has had the backbone to stand up and say, hey, you know what? That is not your constitutional responsibility. There's nothing that allows us to do that. And why Congress cannot, well, they can, defund those. Hey, Mr. President, with all due respect, we're sorry, but you know what? There is nothing in the Constitution that allows for a federal Department of Education. How many has the Federal Department of Education educated? 0. They don't educate anybody. Each state has a Department of Education, and then you have counties and local municipalities and so forth that run their school districts and so forth. The Federal Department of Education has not did, I would submit, not one student. They may have contributed some program or done some research on something, but they don't educate anything. How can you have a national entity in charge of education of a student body? I know it was tried in Germany in the 30s, and I'm not drawing like a major parallel or anything, but it's way too far removed. And I
believe Russia did it as well.
There's no constitutional authority
China
to do
does
that
it too.
Anywhere. As a matter of fact, the Northwest Ordinance, one of our organic documents, which we've talked about several times on the show here, talks about how edge is important. So they talked about Congress being able to gift land to localities and municipalities to be able to establish schools because they viewed it as education as important. Establishment or ability to establish a federal Department of Education. That's just one department here that I'm talking about.
One out of the hundreds.
So I think that you can have a serious impact on the budget by seriously reducing and closing down and eliminating a lot of these departments. And I'm not saying that federal employees are bad people, because they're not. We have a lot of fine people that are employed by the federal government. But unfortunately, in employing that many people, and whether they're good people or not, it is, in my opinion, having a massive negative impact on us budgetarily and so forth. I think another problem is we have nothing backing our currency. It's a theory. We have no gold, we have no silver, we have nothing that backs our currency. So if people lost faith in that, and by people I mean American people, then guess what happens to our currency? It goes away. It becomes worthless. We keep printing it and monetizing it. Go ahead.
I'm speaking more of a mindset. So if I'm an agency head and I'm given $50 million, and let's say I don't need the $50 million, and I give back too.
Right.
But they won't do that. And what got me on this was I saw an article where Rand Paul gave back $600,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, why doesn't everybody do that? But that's not how they think. Now, within all these departments, you've got stupid shit, and I realize that. But if I can buy grass seed for $4 a bag instead of the $5 a bag I budgeted, I'm going to give the money back. I'm not going to spend it on more grass seed.
Well, but the problem,
you've got stupid things out there like, and I referenced this in one of my posts. $5 million for abstinence programs, and at the same time, we're giving away free birth control. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense.
No, and I understand that, but what needs to happen is on top of principal leaders and fiscal responsibility on the executive and legislative branch, you also get these directors of these agencies down a step and these managers and all that stuff, and actually maybe find a way to reward their agency for giving back money. Like if you give back $2 million,
and that's where I'm going with that, and I'm going to write about it. I'm going to let you guys talk about it some more, but it's right there. I mean, on budget.
Look,
how can you be on budget? Nobody is on budget. I'm not on budget.
I disagree that we need to reward anybody for doing the right thing. I mean, that's like giving a trophy.
No, I understand.
I agree with. If they do the right thing and get their budget out, how's about you get to keep your job?
No, well, that's.
How's about if you go over on your spend, you lose your job? How's about we're gonna make a detailed look and account of what it is you're spending your money on, and do it. Maybe maybe we spend a little bit of money on the front end to do a massive audit. And guess what? If you're found that you're just spending money for the sake of spending money at the end of the fiscal year, you lose your job.
Well, and that's the private sector.
Yeah, and all my stuff, by the way, came from the federal government. I didn't get it from some crazy internet site. So like you guys have fun with it. But think about what I just said when you go into your discussion about the sequester, because we're talking about $85 billion in growth.
Nothing.
We're not even talking about real money.
No, I agree with it's crazy. And, I'm going to recant what I said and agree with Clint on this matter is that, you know what, they should be punished, because the more I think about it, you go to private sector and if somebody goes over their spending budget for a certain quarter, period, whatever, they get thrown out or they get reprimanded. And so
there's no one to punish. Everybody's on budget.
Well, and that's the thing. Maybe that's why you spend a little bit of money on the front end. You do some kind of massive audit, and you look at their expenditures. And hey, you know what? These agencies that are spending X number of dollars at the end of the fiscal year, which is outside of their spending pattern, guess what? You now get punished, even though you're on budget. You could have turned in whatever, $2 million, $4 million, $100,000, doesn't matter. But
makes you wonder why the third quarter always goes up, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that's my point. So why aren't we looking at that and now punishing those agencies, even if they're on budget, to where, hey, now you're just spending for the sake of spending.
But that's what they're doing. You and I both know it. Have fun with it.
I agree.
I don't agree with you. I don't think all those. I think government does a good job at a lot of things. I think they're good employees. I think we need the Department of Agriculture. I don't necessarily think we need the Department of Education, but
there may be good employees and they may do a good job at certain things, but it doesn't mean that they are constitutionally that they should be there. It doesn't mean that they are there legally. I mean, they may be legally because somebody decided to pass a law, but they don't fall under the purview of the executive branch in his constitutional duties. We've become an administrative state. So even though they may be doing a good job at certain things, or the employees may be good people, I view that as an emotional argument when there is no basis in law for that to even exist, and look what it's costing us.
Agreed.
So, hey, Rooster, I missed you, man. Thank you.
I missed you, too. Surprise.
No,
I didn't even let loose with I didn't say shit or fuck or anything like that.
No, yeah, you did out first. If you remember. Yeah, you did. You broke the seal on that pretty quick.
Hey, Rooster,
I
love it because it gives me a chance to sit here and doze off for a little while, so I appreciate that.
Now, let me ask, was it worth the tease?
Of course it was. It created
seriously.
good information.
It is good information.
Good talking point. It absolutely was.
And I'm going to turn it into something very Rooster-esque.
Well, as only you can do, my friend. Only you.
Yeah,
hey, Rooster.
More posts coming. I'm back to work, so if you call it work, but there'll be more than just one a week. So.
Well, and we can't wait at conservativeoutcry.net. Ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Rooster. Thank you for joining us,
Thanks, Rooster.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care.
So before we go into the next break,
hang on a second. I know Rooster's still listening, so I have to throw this out there. I like how when Rooster calls in, then he says he disagrees with me because he thinks like Department of Agriculture does a good job and has good employees, and then I say, okay, but there's no legal basis for it, so it shouldn't exist. And he says, I agree with you. Yeah, I love it. I disagree with you, but then I agree with you.
I understand to look at the people, and I understand what you're saying. And it's hard when I think for a lot of people, when you say, you know what, these agencies shouldn't even exist, I think in this budget, a lot of people picture the employees versus the agency.
And again, that's an emotional argument.
It totally is.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, and they're like, well, without the Department of Agriculture, farmers would get screwed. Well, you can send it to a state level.
Yeah, and you know what?
Maybe it can be maintained on a state level.
Maybe if that employee wasn't working at the Department of Agriculture, maybe they would start a radio show. Or they would start.
I'll tell you, too,
and even start going.
It would benefit, especially Department of Ag, and I'm just thinking the farming community and how much regulation.
Let's talk about education.
No, I'm going to bring Department of Ag for a minute.
Okay.
How much farmers in this country go through, and it's federalized. Almost everything is more federal than any local. You throw it down onto a local level, and now you can get states to be competitive.
Well, how many farmers make more money by being on subsidized programs from the federal government, our tax dollars, as opposed to actually working their crops to their full potential?
Yeah.
And we can do a show on that, but I've had some conversations with some farmers that they tell me outright they make more money on federal subsidies.
You do on the actual crop itself.
Absolutely.
Well, and the federal...
That's a problem,
the feds
folks.
influence it because they push everyone towards corn. What was it, 3 or 4 years ago? And then corn went through the roof because they were trying to do the...
we started using it as a fuel source.
As a fuel source and ethanol.
Why you use food as a fuel source, I don't know. But
well, hey, you know what? I do it all the time. Give me a bean burrito, and I am a fuel source. Let me tell you something. Hey, before we go on a break real quick, what if I told you January was one of the biggest declines in 20 years for people's income in this country?
I would believe you, and that leads us to a good lead into the Sequester talks after the break.
That does lead us in a good Sequester talk after the break. So we'll be back in a Sackheads Radio. We'll get right into the Sequester.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. We often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, POLITIGAL Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PolitigalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PolitigalNetwork.com or Twitter at PolitigalUSA.
Hey guys, do you like our news briefs? Better yet, do you like the amazing voice that does our news brief? Do you need some audio work done? Check out PlatinumVocalCords.com. Our friend Vanessa has years of broadcast experience. She's an absolute professional. She'll work with you, get the sound exactly how you'd want it. So go to PlatinumVocalCords.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you. Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. conservativeoutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on conservativeoutcry.net.
This is Sal from New York. Please listen to Sackheads Radio.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
All right, so you were saying.
So before we went to the break, I was talking about how January was one of the biggest declines in American income at home, and went down 3.6%. One dramatic drop since 1993, according to the Commerce Department.
And we also had there was the federal payroll tax holiday also expired.
That's right.
An additional 2.2%.
2.2. So now it's down even more.
So now what's interesting is the average income in America went down 3.4%.
Yeah. Sorry.
You have the federal tax holiday.
And this is just January.
It's just January. Well, in January, because you had the Americans saw a 2.2% pay cut for most Americans because of the payroll tax break that expired. So, or it was, 3.6% in January, according to the Commerce Department. Now, the federal budget is about $3.5 trillion. Okay.
Yeah.
These sequester cuts force. Well, one number says $85 billion over a one-year period, which is 2% of the budget. However, because the government operates on a fiscal year, this fiscal year we will see only $44 billion in cuts. And this is according to the CBO. And that is 1.3% of the budget. So you have the federal government of the United States and Democrats in Congress crying about how it's doomsday, we can't survive, everybody's going to die because of this 2.4 or 1.3% cut.
Right.
Americans have had to live with a 3.6% income drop in January. Most Americans received a 2.2% pay cut in January because of, again, those expiring payroll tax cuts, or payroll tax breaks. So they get the same cut as the American people, and we can make it work. Yet it's doomsday for the federal government.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, when it comes time for us to give a little bit more and to break and bend, it's fine. But when they have to do it,
and let's look at what's affected here. It's discretionary spending, okay, for the most part. $42.7 billion in discretionary defense.
Right.
And this came out from the Wall Street Journal line. It's 26.4% discretionary non-defense, 26.4 billion, 11.1 billion net, and 5.2 billion other mandatory spending. So most of it is discretionary in nature, and about half of it is defense-related discretionary. So you mean to tell me that the world is going to end, the zombie apocalypse is going to happen, the earth is going to start caving in for 1.3% of the federal budget this fiscal year, which, by the way, I didn't even think we had a budget because the Senate won't get off their rear and act. But anyways, I digress. Well, you have Maxine Waters coming out saying that we were going to lose 70 million jobs.
Which I have a problem with, and I'll tell you why. because we only have about 140 million Americans working right now. So
according to the U.S. Labor and Statistics,
right, and I think that
2011.
was roughly, yeah. So I did some quick math on that, and I found
and
out it puts us in negative 30.
Okay.
So apparently Canada is going to lose some jobs.
Okay.
That's my only. Maybe Europe, some places. China won't lose any jobs.
No,
but,
they'll get some.
I don't know where else that could be.
Maybe Mexico. Maybe some of the cartels are going to go out of business.
I don't know. Hello, Maxine. Just pay attention. Which is funny because Nancy Pelosi made a statement like that a couple years ago too.
Pistol grip.
Where she said something to the effect of how many Americans there were, and I think it was like she said some ridiculous amount and it wasn't even close. But you would think when you're about to speak about something and you're trying to make a point, and especially if you're trying to use hard facts, you should at least have an idea what you're talking about.
Well, you said it all right.
By the way,
you said it all right there. They can't use hard facts.
Right.
They're trying to scare the American public because if you throw a number out that's larger than the entire American workforce, how many people are going to actually do the research and say, hey, wait a second, Labor and Statistics actually said there were only 140 million workers nationwide. How many people are going to do that? They're not.
Well, they should. That's the problem.
They should.
By the way, as of right now, we have 315.5 million Americans, and 140.5 or so are working.
What are the rest doing? Well, some are kids.
Some are children. Some are elderly that are retired.
Okay.
I'm sure there's some legitimately disabled people.
Okay.
I'm sure there are some people that
can't find work.
Well, there could also be people that don't have to work for one reason or another.
Okay.
So there's those 5 or 6 people. Rooster said in the chat room a lot of them are screwing in Zark. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, that's just rich white people that have a college education.
Right.
So,
They like to wear grunge clothes.
They like to wear grunge clothes and blend in. But you look at this, and it's 2% of our budget. I understand when you're talking billions of dollars, 2% seems like a large number, but it's still 2%. And when it's discretionary, and I don't know where I put. Here I do. I found it. When you're talking discretionary spending for non-defense, 26.4. Now, defense is different. In my opinion, I hate when we cut. I always feel like it's going to come back to bite us on the ass on some level, but that's just me.
Well, look, that's because these sequester cuts were designed by the Obama administration to, and I know that's going to send some people into faints, but Bob Woodward did a great article on it. He talked to several people who proposed it, wrote an outstanding article, was in his book, and we'll get to that if we have time tonight. But the Obama administration put this out with the whole thing and sold it to Harry Reid for his support with the whole understanding of, well, this will never happen.
Right.
These are too drastic because it's hitting defense and everything else. This will never happen. This is just kind of a sledgehammer to hold over Congress's head to kind of, get everybody with the program and come up with a balanced approach. Basically, they thought they could get another tax hike out of the American people with it, and that happened. The Republicans, surprisingly, held firm in that and saying, hey, we gave you a tax hike, last time we dealt. So,
well, and it's one of those things too, and I'll play the most recent clip from February 19, 2013, where he's against these cuts. But back in November 1st, 2011, he said that, anything that came across with the auto cuts would veto it. And it wouldn't, we can't have, we need this, blah, 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 blah.
Because Congress was trying to make some laws to get rid of those auto cuts, and he said any attempt at
right, he'd veto immediately.
Auto cuts, he'd veto immediately.
No questions asked, blah, 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 we have to cut. And then flash forward to February 19, 2013, and the president says this.
Emergency responders, like the ones who are here today, their ability to help communities respond to and recover from disasters will be degraded. Border Patrol agents will see their hours reduced. FBI agents will be furloughed. Federal prosecutors will have to close cases and let criminals go. Air traffic controllers and airport security will see cutbacks, which means more delays at airports across the country. Thousands of teachers and educators will be laid off. Tens of thousands of parents will have to scramble to find child care for their kids. Hundreds of thousands of Americans will lose access to primary care and preventive care like flu vaccinations and cancer screenings. And already the threat of these cuts has forced the Navy to delay an aircraft carrier that was supposed to deploy to the Persian Gulf. And as our military leaders have made clear, changes like this, not well thought through, not phased in properly, changes like this affect our ability to respond to threats in unstable parts of the world. So these cuts are not smart, they are not fair, they will hurt our economy, they will add hundreds of thousands of Americans to the unemployment rolls. This is not an abstraction. People will lose their jobs. The unemployment rate might tick up again.
Well, why don't we fire the person that pushed for that then?
I think we should. Then why, Mr. President, did you push for that? Why, Mr. President, were you going to veto any bill that came across your desk in order to overturn those sequesters?
Well, and you saw, he's listing everything, the FBI, military, healthcare. He's going right down the line of hot-button issues that he wants to scare people with. And there's been numerous reports saying that half of things won't kick in so far down the line that they're going to probably fix it before then or whatever. But, he talks about the FBI. Well, now we're going to start going after terrorism. Well, now we're in a more unsafe country.
And that's the reason he put those forward. Again, he held that over like a sledgehammer.
Border Patrol, same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, now the borders are open again. Everyone wants these borders closed, but now we can't do it because people are going to be, we're going to have to pull the Border Patrols off the agent. He's talking about federal prosecutors. Criminals are going to walk free. They're not going to let criminals walk free.
They already did. How many illegal immigrants did they already let go? And how many of those criminal aliens? Criminals, and how many of those had other criminal cases pending? So they've already done this.
But the ones that they were going to prosecute anyhow because they're so heinous and that federal prosecutor wants to make a name for himself or whatever the reason being, or Eric Holder didn't say that, no, it's Pittsburgh and they weren't really trying to do any sort of voter intimidation. I'm talking about the other ones, the ones that actually they're going to go after. He's saying, now these things aren't going to get prosecuted. Yeah, I have a feeling that they are.
Here's the thing.
They just may have to be smarter.
Look, the Obama administration put these out and put these cuts specifically, again, like I said, as this hammer to hold over the American people's head because he thought he could bully Congress into acting. And now that these have gone through, he's rewriting the history books here, and he is trying, the media is not covering it, and he's trying to say that it's the Republicans that did this.
Yeah.
Look, they put a plan, as I understand it, they caved to him, and they or if you want to say they worked with him. They came up with a deal when they allowed certain taxes and so forth to be hiked in certain areas. The last deal they went around with the budget, and now they're not because the Republicans actually got in hot water over that with their base and with a lot of conservatives.
Right.
The Republican Party is hurting, and so now they're holding firm. And Obama's big sledgehammer, his big bully, didn't get the result he wanted. And that's what it's coming down to. And so, look, he's cutting some major things that nobody likes and has a problem with, which is why he cannot take responsibility for it. And now even his military is saying, according to his own words that you just played, that these are ill-thought-out, ill-conceived, stupid cuts. And
that he came up with.
Or that House came up with.
And he and Harry Reid the White House. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me how you can 2 years ago say one thing and then 2 years later say something totally different, do 100% flip-flop, and nobody is upset over it.
Well, nobody's playing it. That's
exactly
the thing. The media is not covering it. Other than Fox News and Sackheads Radio,
right?
Nobody in the
media
is covering it.
And Breitbart.com, and there's a couple other ones out there.
You know what kills me, though, is you're right. There's some conservative groups who are, but the mainstream media is not covering it. And what kills me is his job approval, according to the latest Real Clear Politics poll, is 50.9%.
Yeah.
With a 43.6% disapproval rating. Congress is at a 14.7% approval rating.
Oh, they went up.
With a 77% disapproval rating. However, 57.5% of the American public say we're heading in the wrong direction. We're on the wrong track. Right. So why is his job approval rating so high?
Because they're blaming Congress.
Yes, they are.
And that's how you know that he's winning the BS sling.
Well, here's the thing. Look, the
he blames Congress. He blames Republicans, so they have a low approval. They have a huge approval rating.
And Congress traditionally does anyway.
Right, because nobody likes Congress.
Right.
But so you throw that away, and now you have his. How's he doing as a job? Well, he's not. We're not going in the right direction as a country. Okay, but how's the president doing? Oh, he's outstanding. Well, isn't he supposed to be the leader?
Yeah. Well, he said it himself, right? He's not a dictator. He can't force Congress to do anything. And guess what, Mr. President? I'm glad to hear you admit that you are not a dictator, because I was kind of concerned there for a little while, and the fact that you like to have these big hammers over Congress's head and then get all.
Well, you know what though? That's like me saying I'm not fat. If you look at
like
me,
a Lego guy.
you might,
like your head is perfectly round, and you have this little.
If you look at me, you might not agree with that statement. However, I'm just going to sit here and say it over and over again. I'm not fat. I'm not fat. I'm not fat. I'm not a dictator. You act like one. Yeah, but I'm not one. Okay.
You're right. You're not. But
you think you are.
You think you are. You would like to act unilaterally. And we touched on it earlier when we talked about this administrative state that we live in now, where Congress really, Congress can cut the budget. Congress controls the purse strings. That is a huge hammer, and Congress will not wield that. They could very easily say, you know what, Mr. President, we control the purse strings, so we're not going to fund your Obamacare. We're not going to fund your education. We're not going to fund your whatever the case is. We're not going to fund the IRS. How awesome would that be? But Congress has this huge hammer, and they won't use it. The House of Representatives will not use it on the president, and I think this president needs to be reminded, just as any president would have needed to be reminded. George Bush, in some cases, could have used this reminder also.
Absolutely.
Hey, you know what?
Absolutely.
We control the purse strings. Just because you want to spend an exorbitant amount of money on X, Y, or Z, no, we're not going to give you those funds. We're going to defund, whatever it is. We think that your Health Care Act is unconstitutional. It was upheld in the Supreme Court. We disagree with it. We have checks and balances in this country, in our beautiful republic. We're not funding it. So there are things that Congress can do that they're not doing. And this president has been allowed to do things and kind of bully Congress and even the media at times, the American people, through some of this rhetoric that he's using and so forth. And nobody has really held him accountable, which I have a major problem with. Do you think that the people are ever going to hold him accountable?
And I'm starting to become concerned, and I used to not. I don't think it's just him. I think it's the left in general. I think the left, which, was way back when, was kind of like the hippie and everything great. Like, that's kind of the progressive movement that it's turned into. Everyone needs to get along. Everyone needs their fair share. Everybody needs, that you're entitled. You should have this. But I think so many people embracing that I don't think anybody from that side will ever get called out.
And that's the thing. They have really done a very good job.
Yes.
At slowly transforming this country.
They've made it okay to sit on your couch and get things for free. They've made that okay. They've made it okay to not be personally responsible. They've made it okay to be low information. You don't have to know we know what's best for you. We don't have to know.
But they've done that so that they can retain power.
Absolutely.
Because if you keep the people fat, dumb, and happy, no offense, Sean, then, well, you're not happy. Then
and they only ask him to move out of mom's basement once every 4 years or once every 2 years to vote.
But if you keep the people that way and uneducated and you give them cake, then you're going to stay in power. You're going to stay in power. And things are going to become acceptable. And look, I thought when we called in, we had this conversation about this administrative state. Look, we've gone from a true representative republic where Congress and the legislative branch is in charge of making the laws, and we have the administrative state that now has these regulations that are made by bureaucrats. They're not made by elected officials that are accountable to you and me and the American people. We have these regulations that have the same force of law, to where now you have the legislative branch or elected officials that are almost like the voice of the people.
Right.
But you have this weird administrative entity that is in charge more of the legislative authority. They make the rules and they enforce the rules, like the EPA, Department of Ag, and Department.
That's how they get around. And that's how they get around legitimate constitutional laws.
But that's the problem with the progressive movement that we talked about, and that's why we're in this mess we're at now, and that's why we have a president that has the audacity to act the way this one acts, and to try and enforce and bully the way this one does. Look, why is the president having anything to do with the budget? Look, I know he's the chief executive, but he has a very specific job, and the budget is not one of them.
No.
So while he has to sign off on it, that's great. Why is he putting things through and twisting arms and doing these things in the legislative branch to try and get his will? And yeah, I know it's politics, and well, he knows what's best for the country. Well, whatever the argument's going to be, that's not his job, and nobody holds him accountable. Look, I don't care if it's people from his same party. They could have said, hey, Mr. President, hey, you know what? You come to us, you have these ideas, we have it, but we're not going to be bullied into doing your bidding because we're elected by the people. We are a separate branch. We are a check on your power.
Well, and it's one of those things for the side that just does everything they can to get rid of bullies, and we can't have bullying. You're not allowed to bully. If you say one wrong thing at school now, God forbid you say the wrong thing to somebody, hey, I don't like your shirt. Oh, he bullied me because he doesn't like blue shirts or whatever. From the side that's pushed that major agenda forward, they are the best at being bullies. I mean, they're starting to do it to media on their own side because they dare speak against the dear leader. Did I say that out loud? What?
No, he is. He is their leader, right?
Right.
Okay.
And he's endeared to them. So
Correct.
The dear leader, not the dear leader. That's totally different. That's a leader, a dear. It's mind-boggling to me. And I had a discussion about the psychology of this nation, and the psychologists and shrinks that take these kids at a young age. They say, oh, there's something wrong with this one. There's something wrong. And, he needs to be hugged more, and he doesn't need to be pushed. He needs to be left alone. And it started in the late 50s, early 60s, and it progressed, and it kept progressing. And we have all these over-the-top liberal approaches to, and they say, oh, it's all about everybody wins at school and everybody wins at soccer. And all it's done is created this nation of pansies and ninnies that don't stand up for anything.
I'll take it one step further. I'll even say that we not only does everybody win and everybody get a trophy, and so now nobody knows how to be competitive, not only on an individual level, but on a national or international level when we're talking about economics. But what about this gender stuff? You know what? It's you can't be manly.
No, and
you can't be feminine
about that
because. So now we're having gender identity
issues and all this other
and
stuff.
Else.
And I joke about it, the whole metrosexual movement, where it's like I joke about it me being fat, and I joke about me being hairy and all that stuff. But, it's one of those things, they've done everything they can to disempower males in order to make women, in their opinion, seem stronger. Because in their opinion, women are weaker, and they need somebody to knock down the stronger party.
But that is you in and of itself.
Absolutely is. Oh, we have to make you more feminine. We have to make you less manly. We have to take away your masculinity. You're not allowed to say certain code words because even though you're not trying to be offensive, it is offensive.
It is offensive. Well, so, it's offensive to who? And, yeah, I agree with you. Look, you know what? You can't do it on your own, so we're going to help you through legislation. Get it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I was talking, actually, at the event on Saturday, I was talking to a couple women, and Tiffany Rugner, who's the organizer, they're furious. Women are, and I can't even imagine when the government pretty much says you're too dumb to do it on your own. So what we're going to do is everyone on the left of the progressive movement, we're going to start knocking men down as much as we can. And that way you're not really going up, but it's going to seem like you're going up. Hey, you know what? I have 2 sisters. I have cousins, all very strong, capable women. You're not going to tell them they can't do anything. They bust their ass. They work hard. They're intelligent. You can't get anything by them. And you know what? They did it for themselves. Yes, my parents, my grandparents, they put in really good foundation on being self-reliant, not taking no for an answer, working as hard as you can to get what you want. And it stuck. And I'll tell you, you put up my 2 sisters and my mother even against some of the men on most issues, and they're going to stand toe-to-toe because they don't think that it's the man's fault. They just win.
Look,
you know?
I have a much more simplistic view, and whether you're a Darwin fan or whether you're a Christian or another, if you believe in God, here's the fact: men and women are created differently. They have different strengths, they have different weaknesses, and I would even argue that women are built for the harder job of ensuring the survival of the species. And
men certainly can't do it.
Yeah, who's the children? Who can? Men can't breastfeed the baby. Okay, who ensures the survival of the species? It's the women, and there's a reason why women were not allowed to fight in wars way back when and everything else. And if I say that now, I'm a raging sexist bigot. And look, we're created differently for a purpose, whether we evolve differently, if that's what you believe, or whether God created us differently, if that's what you believe. We are created or we evolve differently. There's a reason for that. We have different functions. We are not the same. I want to get back to something before our next break, where we talked about the budget and these sequesters, and we kind of veered off here.
What, us?
I know, weird, right? We talked about the Department of Agriculture, and there is a laundry list of agencies within the Department of Agriculture. And first of all, we could defund the whole thing and I'd be okay with it. But, okay, what do you think we need Agriculture Marketing Service for? That's a federal agency under the Department of Agriculture. Agricultural Marketing Service. How about this one? Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. Really? Economic Research Service. Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion. Yeah, it's Department of Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Food and Nutrition Service. Foreign Agricultural Service.
Yes, because now we're going to inspect foreign lands.
Right. Grain inspection. Marketing and regulatory programs. See, there's that whole code word again.
Regulatory.
Congress is not making the laws. It's a bureaucrat.
Right.
Interesting. Risk management. Federal Crop Insurance Corporation. What?
Wait, it's a corporation?
Yeah.
How can it be a corporation if it's federal government?
Rural Housing Service. Rural Utilities Service.
Mm-hmm. Don't you realize without that we'd have no crops?
Oh, yeah. No,
there'd be zero.
You know why?
Zero.
Because we never had crops before.
No.
Nobody ever. Oh, wait.
Nobody even thought of growing anything until the Department of Ag was made. And now what they've done is, what? They didn't. That nobody even. Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy? It's like that, where they were trying to pour Gatorade on seeds and stuff. They just, until somebody went, no, you need water. Nothing happened.
Nothing ever happened.
People were too stupid until government showed up.
Yeah, no, look at you. You need to put the seed in the ground.
I done left him over the bag
and then water
it. And then the guy came and he said to do the thing, and I put Gatorade on it. Okay. Look, you realize farmers are some of the most resourceful, intelligent individuals on the planet?
That's not true. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a federal agency to show them how to do it.
Have you ever met an actual farmer, somebody who does it for a living?
Yes.
Very intelligent, very resourceful. They think of ways.
And they are that way only because the Department of Agriculture has given them the resources.
They're that way because they have to be, because if they aren't, the Department of Ag will destroy them. And you look at all, just so many rules and regulations, and they're starting to expand it even more. Now they're starting to say, and I think this is a California law, so it's going to be federal eventually, that children under the age of 16 cannot do certain dangerous jobs on a farm.
Like milk a cow.
Before it was a family job. You know, farmers, a lot of times you grow up on the farm, you work on the farm.
Because California is saying that even though it's a member of the family, the farm is a business, therefore it falls under child labor law.
Right. And that's absolutely
ludicrous.
Ludicrous, because now that farmer has to go out and actually hire somebody to do the job that his child would do to bring income into the home. So here's a little weird thought. This kid at a young age is actually creating the income for the home and learning how to work and be responsible and all that. But now he's going to have to outsource it. What do you think that's going to do to the cost of crops? It's going to go up.
Well, yeah, but how about this? How about, as a parent, if I want my child to learn the trade, to learn how to feed the chicken, to learn how to milk the cow, to do chores around the house, which really is what it comes down to, because that's how I'm raising my child, not to mention working around a farm, what a tremendous experience.
I wish I did.
I wish I had also.
I would love to own a farm right now.
And now to say, you know what, you
all that
can't
sweet federal money.
You can't have your children do those chores. You can't teach your children
your trade to
be a farmer. Your trade.
You can't do what generations upon generations have done to grow children. Right. You look at the Midwest and you wonder why they're so close as a family. You wonder why they have such great family values, and there's a reason for that, because they spend their whole day together.
We're up against a break. Here's where I was going with this. Let me take it one step further. You pay your children allowance for doing chores around the house.
Yes.
That's income.
Yes.
So now they are child labor. So they're subject to child labor. Where does it end? I mean, honestly,
I know
these politicians don't think this through. But now you're going to have people. I'm going to have people on the left that are listening saying, "Oh, that'll never happen." We
already have in California.
Guess what? If those laws are read and interpreted in such a manner, and somebody decides to take a parent to court, which in California, parents have been taken to court for less,
you're screwed.
Guess what? Don't pay your kid an allowance. Oh, but now that's slave labor. Sackheads Radio.
We'll be back in a minute.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Hi, this is Sarah Marie Brenner. You know, we often talk on the Brenner Brief about the fact that there really needs to be an organization to help people at the local level who are interested in running for things like school boards, city council, and other local offices. Well, I think I finally have the solution for you, at least for you women out there. It's called Politigal Network, Politigal Network.com. Their website's going to be launching mid-August, but they're already on Twitter at PolitigalUSA. I encourage you to follow them and become a member. Their goal is to be the #1 resource for conservative women. So if you love freedom, liberty, the United States of America, and politics, check out PolitigalNetwork.com or Twitter at PolitigalUSA.
Hey guys, do you like our news briefs? Better yet, do you like the amazing voice that does our news briefs? Do you need some audio work done? Check out PlatinumVocalCords.com. Our friend Vanessa has years of broadcast experience. She's an absolute professional. She'll work with you, get the sound exactly how you'd want it. So go to PlatinumVocalCords.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you. Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at ConservativeOutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. ConservativeOutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on ConservativeOutcry.net.
This is Sal from New York. Please listen to Sackheads Radio.
Now back to Clinton Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
Bob Woodward, we love Sal. Got hammered. You know, to say you're going to regret writing this article when you have a...
Were we just talking about White House bullies?
Weird.
Interesting. Huh.
But when you have the White House, you have a reporter who Bob Woodward was involved in Nixon.
Well, the Watergate scandal.
Watergate scandal. Yeah. It was a big deal. So when him, and he's been in the White House as a reporter for years now, very senior man, and he turns around and he pens an article about the sequester, essentially saying that the White House is who called for it, and then he gets a email from a White House staffer, high up, says, essentially, you're going to regret making this article or writing this article. And everyone says, well, it's not an outright threat, blah, 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 blah. The terms you're going to regret implies a feeling.
Well, what kind of threat?
Pull his credentials, make him not work there anymore. It doesn't matter. The simple fact is
you have a member of the White House. You have a member of the White House bullying a member of the Free Press.
Right. And we also had, I think it was Lanny Davis, a former Clinton staffer, who said that he received that type of treatment from the White House about something that he had said too. And he's an Obama supporter. And essentially he penned an article, I think it was in the New York Times, and I could be wrong, but the editor was, the White House got wind of what he was going to write, and the editor turned around and said, hey, or the White House contacted the editor and said, hey, you know what, if you go with that, we may lose your White House credentials. How is that even acceptable? Why is this not a big deal? And it's only a matter of time before the White House gets to Woodward and say, hey, back off, and we'll back off type thing and make it go away because this will hurt us really bad and we won't give you any more interviews. Oh, wait, that would be another threat.
This has happened before in other countries. What? What?
Nothing.
I don't. Oh, well, we were talking about the Soviet Union, right?
Right.
I'm sure Putin.
Do you remember
really
Do you remember the movie Airplane?
Yes.
Do you remember how through the movie they keep going to news briefs, and one of them was Pat Sajak, believe it or not, was the American news guy, and they'd get to the Russian newsreader and there'd be a gun to his head, and he would just be very blatant, the plane going to crash. That's kind of where we're going with this.
Right.
I just don't understand how that is. Can you imagine if the Bush administration did that to somebody? Oh my goodness.
They'd be all
Chris Matthews would explode.
And rightfully so.
But it would be made such a big deal in the mainstream media that you couldn't turn anything on without it exploding. You know, and now here's a guy that's been a lefty his whole life, and he's been in his court, and he was an Obama supporter, and he penned.
He's pretty reasonable as a leftist, so he's pretty reasonable.
But that's his leaning. He's always been that way, and you know, and then I'm hearing through the grapevine that there are certain reporters that have information on Woodward, and some of the Watergate thing may not have been 100% truthful, and they're just waiting for him to die. And I heard that today on some talk show. That, you know, there are reporters saying, "Oh, we're just waiting for Woodward to die so we can really unleash some of the dirt that he's thrown around and all this."
So let me get this straight.
So now he's the bad guy,
right? Exactly. And now everybody's coming to the defense of the Obama administration,
right? Because they want to be.
Do you believe Obama is a socialist?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
was it you that termed the phrase "democratic socialist"? Was that you who said?
I don't remember.
Somebody said that.
A lot of cool things.
He's a democratic socialist.
I might have said that. That sounds like something I might say. But he's definitely a socialist. And look, big government. There are socialist regimes in the past that have dominated media. They don't like negative media, and they control and bully in order to wield their power. And look, we talk and joke about Germany a lot, and we're not. First of all, we're not making any kind of connection to where the Obama administration has done any of the atrocities or is as bad as that administration, that regime, the Nazi regime, at all. And I hate the references when even the left would make references to George W. Bush as Hitler and so forth, because saying he's a fascist or whatnot. Bottom line is the Nazi regime was a socialist regime.
Mm-hmm.
And you can draw parallels between the progressive movement and even the Obama administration, specifically how they handle their PR and how they handle
well, considering the playbook,
press and so forth.
The playbook from World War II by the Nazis was pulled from Woodrow Wilson's administration.
It was, yeah. Goebbels' book for the propaganda that the Nazi Party let out was absolutely pulled from the Woodrow Wilson administration. But so when we make these references, we're not saying that Obama is an evil dictator that commits these types of atrocities by any stretch of the imagination. We're simply drawing a parallel of the socialist regime under Germany, and there is a parallel for how they conduct themselves, not for a matter of policy against an ethnic group or anything like that, but just from an administrative standpoint and how they handle some of their PR,
right?
And how they deal with controlling the message and so forth.
Yeah, and it's frightening. And the simple fact, listen, when they do it against Fox and they do it against conservative writers, and they've not answered specific questions. I remember we had the clip of Jay Carney getting in the argument with the young lady asked, what is the White House stand on Jerusalem? And he said, well, our stance has it. He wouldn't answer the question. I understand the stonewalling. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. I understand when you just outright stonewall. Hey, we're not going to answer that question. And there's been press secretaries that have come out and said, yeah, there's just some things you don't talk about. You're not allowed to even comment on.
Gibbs came out, this week?
Yes.
Said that he was told he could not
talk about
the drone program, even though he knew it existed. Everybody knew it existed.
Wasn't even allowed to mention it.
Wasn't even allowed to mention it.
I have no comment. That's what he was. So that's this president. That was this president's press secretary before Carney. So that tells you automatically the most transparent government on the face of the planet. We're going to be transparent. And here's the difference between he and, say, Bush, or he and even Clinton. They didn't run on this transparency ticket. They didn't run on this open White House. You're going to know everything that we know. They didn't run on that. He did. That was one of his major things. You're going to know what's going on in government because we're not going to block you from it. We're going to have the most transparent government on the planet. Where is it? Because you hide everything.
Here's the thing.
You lie and
here's the thing, Sean. Here's what you're missing. It is so transparent you can't see it.
You're right.
Right?
You got me.
It's so transparent you see right through it like it's not even there. Kind of like a window that's so clean you walk into it.
So now I'm a bird flying into a window. I got it.
So what's the problem?
The problem is that was a great analogy. The problem is the people in this country don't demand more. You know what I mean? The people in this country do not demand any more. And you have to. If you're going to run on a transparent government, then you have to provide it. Because I'll tell you right now,
well,
the other way around,
he doesn't have to do anything right now. He doesn't face another election.
Well, that we know of.
And the American people did not hold him accountable last time.
Right.
So he doesn't have to be. Look, I can understand the government having certain secrets. I understand the need for secrecy, especially when you're talking about national defense. I get it. But you can't control the media or hammer members of the media or members of the public because they say something that you don't like.
Guardians of the Republic.
Yes, you work for us, Mr. President. You work for us, and we are going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
The media should hold you accountable, regardless of what party you work for. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. You should be held accountable. And you're going to, I get so angry.
No,
look, I want to hear about your, I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to hear about your interviews this week.
So I had the pleasure of going to the Day of Resistance rally on the 23rd of February, 223. I went to the state of California state capital, Sacramento. At the
Veterans. Was that on our expense account?
It absolutely was for travel. Spoke at the, well, I didn't speak, but the event was held at the Veterans Memorial, which is a beautiful memorial. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely stunning. They did a great job with it.
Oh, okay. I thought it was at the Capitol building itself. It was not?
No, it was on the Capitol grounds, but not at the Capitol building itself.
Okay.
Funny story, before we get into the California one. The Salem, Oregon was canceled a couple days before because they had a power wash, so they couldn't provide the permit for them to have their rally. Weird.
Interesting.
So I found that out through our friend Tammy J, and I at some point I may call the state of Oregon rather, and request all of their power washing schedules for that area and see if there's any inconsistencies. If it's every Saturday at that date and time, right, wrong, or indifferent, okay.
How about how far out was it scheduled?
Right.
Because that would be
Can they
more
make
reasonable.
adjustments?
Yeah. Because I know power washing at certain state capitals, they may only do it once a year, once every
I don't know.
years. So maybe how far out was it scheduled?
I don't know. But it was a good event. I'll tell you, they had 700 people there. Families, not one incident, not one problem. We had a couple, there was a couple occupiers that tried to make it in the crowd, and people just ignored them, which is the funniest thing. They walked around with their silly masks, and their signs are the kind of not even a counter protest. I wouldn't validate it that much. But they couldn't even, people wouldn't even look at them, and they just eventually left.
Cool.
The speakers were outstanding. They had a Lieutenant Colonel, Charlie Schaub, I think his name is, who from the Marine Corps, he was amazing to listen to. He told some unbelievable stories. The whole focus on the Second Amendment and how important it is for the protection of the people against tyranny. He highlighted how many people that, people that perished defending that right and freedom. He was outstanding to listen to. And then I talked to a couple individuals on the side. I talked to the executive director of Women's Warrior Pack. She also is the organizer, Tiffany Rubner. I'm going to play hers. But here's a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Zakari. And I hacked his name, and I apologize. Tell a story. I'm going to play the clip real quick. Unbelievable guy. I think he's going to actually be a good up-and-coming politician. He wants to do it for the right reasons, not just because it's a position of power. And here's his interview.
So right now I'm speaking with Jonathan Zakari. Did I pronounce that correct? And you're here at the Day of Resistance rally. You were just one of the keynote speakers. And tell me, what brought you to the rally today, and what message you wanted to get out?
What brought me to the rally was an invitation, and I was very happy to be a part of this. It's an honor and a privilege to speak to a crowd like this.
An outstanding crowd today.
It is an outstanding crowd, and it's a crowd that loves liberty and loves the United States and loves a fellow man. And to take time to make a point to reiterate our freedoms and to reestablish them, and then to try and inform. My message was, let's make sure that we're patiently and caringly informing our neighbors and informing the people in our communities that this is an assault on all our freedoms, not just on conservative freedoms or Republican
Americans
freedoms.
as a whole.
Absolutely, and we need to stop. I really don't like the tendency or the trend. It works very well for politicians and for war strategy. You divide and you conquer. We've had enough divide and conquer going on. We have to stand on principles again. And if we can find mutual principles with anyone across the political spectrum, we need to stand together. And when it comes to constitutional rights, they need to be affirmed by all sides of politics, or we are going to systematically or rudimentary, we're going to bring a rudimentary change to our system that will not allow liberties or dissension or, people actually living in liberty.
Well, once it goes away, it never comes back. Either that's something we fail to see in this country on a regular basis.
It can come back, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm not imploring it, but one of the reasons I'm making an effort now is history has shown that when it comes back, there's bloodshed every time, and I'm not making that as a threat. I want to make sure your listeners are listening. I'm not inciting, but if we don't stand now and it continues to roll, and I'm not talking about the bloodshed of maybe, if you will, people who are on the Second Amendment side attacking the government. I'm talking, usually what happens is whoever's left holding the guns will kill those who don't have the guns.
And we've seen that recently in the world as recently as the last 2 or 3 years over in Egypt and other countries, in Syria as we speak.
It's happening today in India.
Yeah.
There are women who are trying to get the courts to convict rapists. 680 rapes, I think, reported last year. One conviction, and I think the guy is spending 3 months in prison or something, deferred sentence. I don't even know. So the women are taking the streets, and they're also taking up arms because they said, if you won't protect us, we're going to protect ourselves. What does that say about the human condition? And the other problem that we have to wrestle with is that there is evil in the world. Period. And it doesn't come from one political side or another. There is evil in the hearts of people who are on the right. There's evil on the hearts of people on the left. There's evil in the hearts of people who are in the middle on the political spectrum. The idea of our constitutional rights is for us as a free people to be able to live in a society where there are rights and liberties for everyone involved. But it does not.
And he gave a great interview, and I'll post the whole interview on our website for people who want to listen to it. We'll attach it under the show this week. You can listen to the interview in the entirety. He tells this great story about, and I asked him, why is liberty so important to him, and his great story about his parents who came here from Greece, and he's first generation in this country. It was just amazing to listen to. So you'll be able to pick up that whole thing on thesaki.com. And then I had the great chance to speak with Tiffany Rugner. She's Women's Warrior Pack executive director, and she organized all these Day of Resistance rally across the country. So here's my interview with Tiffany.
Here with Tiffany Rugner, the Executive Director of Women Warrior Pack. You were also the national organizer for the Day of Resistance, essentially?
Yes, that's correct. I was actually brought in to organize the 140 rallies that we had today, and Sacramento was actually expected to be one of the smaller ones, and I still believe it is. We've had huge showing all across the nation, yet we had over 700 people here, and I know that because we actually have all their names on a piece of paper.
That's outstanding. It was a huge crowd. It was a great crowd. You had some unbelievable speakers. Diane Nagy saying she was outstanding. What's the next step for the Day of Resistance? Are we going to plan an event for next year? Where do you go for here?
Oh my gosh, next year, no. By next year, we'll have our Second Amendment already taken away. So the Day of Resistance is not just a day. This is an entire movement. It is a resistance movement. We are going to resist the infringement of government upon our Bill of Rights. Right now, they have decided to target the Second Amendment, and we will stop them, and we will bring people out of their homes to stop them, and we're just not going to let the Second Amendment go away without our pushing as hard as we can.
Well, and that's, I think that's one of the things. Everyone thinks it's all about guns when they talk about, them going after the Second Amendment. Everyone's saying, no, it's the gun grabbers. No, it's the Constitution that we're trying to hold on to, and once you allow certain aspects of it to be removed, especially in the Bill of Rights, that opens up everything else. Now, tell us about Women's Warrior Pack a little bit.
Okay, Women Warriors Pack was actually founded by a friend of mine who just looked out there and said, you know what, we do not have something that is supporting good women who are running for Congress. When I say good women, I mean women who actually have read the Constitution and who believe in the Constitution and who want to go to D.C. and uphold our personal rights. So he went ahead and he asked me if I would be the executive director and run Women Warriors Pack, and this is something that we started just before the election, just before the general election. It was kind of to fight Barack Obama's spouting that there's some war on women, and actually over the last 7 months we've discovered that there is a war on women. There's a war on women from Dianne Feinstein. There's a war on women from Nancy Pelosi. There's a war on women from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who thinks that women are stupid and thinks that women should have no rights and that we can be controlled by government just making us promises like giving us taking care of our women's needs. And you know what? I don't need no government to take care of my needs. I can take care of my own needs. What I need for government to do is to take care of the streets and to keep themselves out of my life and allow me to raise my son the way I see fit.
Fantastic. Where can people find Women's Warrior Pack online?
It's womenwarriorspack.com. If you go to the website, you can go ahead and sign up to be one of our players and one of our volunteers. We're looking for lots of people. We are a very new organization, and it's funny, but wasn't the Daily Caller, who's really awful. The Daily Cost has actually talked about us as a very small organization. What they don't have in money, they make up for enthusiasm. And I guess we were actually one of the sponsors of Gun Appreciation Day, and we can see that there's a big movement sweeping across the nation to not only protect our guns but protect all of our rights, because it is nobody's going to protect our rights for us. It has to be done by the individual, and the individual has to decide, are they going to sit down or are they going to stand up and accept the responsibility to fight for the rights that our veterans have died for.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, it was an outstanding event today. It couldn't have been put together any better. You were running around. I appreciate you taking your time. I know you're ready to collapse. And but Day of Resistance, where can people find out more information about it as we go forward?
Day of Resistance?
It was all the motorcycles that showed up to support today's event. That was outstanding.
I think we had at least 35 motorcycles, and we had, just coming from Vacaville alone, they had probably 15 cars and motorcycles just caravanning here. We've got people all over the country doing this. If you want to find more out about Day of Resistance, go to www.dayofresistance.com. This is not a one-day event. This is a 2-year push to resist government infringement on our rights.
Tiffany, we're going to thank you so much for your time.
So it was a good event. Like I said, we had a lot of fun. Tiffany I felt bad. I kept cornering her for an interview, and she was running around. It was like watching a marathon runner, just in circles, trying to keep the event. You have no idea how much it goes into running an event like that. So it was a great event. I had fun kind of doing my man on the street thing. It was a first for me, so that was educational, entertaining. I'm sure I'll get a ton of criticism. That's fine. I deserve every piece of it.
I thought it was well played.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was, you know what, I really want to start going to more events like that if we have it in the Sackheads budget, because that was a lot of fun. I talked to so many great people, and they're not just, there are people there that never even owned a gun. And I thought that was the coolest thing. They're like, hey, I'm not here necessarily because I want a gun. I'm here because I have the right to have a gun, and I never want that to go away.
Well, just to tease.
Okay.
I'm working on something.
Okay.
That could be pretty good for the show.
Okay.
But more importantly, something we're going to try and do for an organization that I believe in, that's out there doing really good work and getting some education out to the American people. So I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Okay.
What?
Nothing. I love the way you tease it like that. That's nice of you.
I want to leave the people with something.
Okay.
We talked about the sequestration and whose fault it was, and one quick note on that. By the way, awesome job going to that and doing those interviews.
Thank you.
So I apologize. I didn't get to that. I couldn't be there. But you did an outstanding job, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, it was fun. I dug it. I really did. We talked about it ahead of time, whether or not we would or we wouldn't.
Yep.
I said we have to cover it. We have to go there. We have to see the people. We have to be part of the movements we talk about.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. It was a great event.
Oh, great job. I'm glad you went there. But I want to leave our people with something as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. At some point.
I will veto any effort to get rid of those automatic spending cuts in domestic and defense spending. There will be no easy off-ramps on this one.
So that was, I don't know if the sound came through so well. That was a clip of Obama originally saying he would veto the automatic spending cuts. So
this is what happens when our sound guy is gone for 3/4 of the show.
Hey, on top of that, did you really just slam a pen down onto the computer?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Full.
But it is out there. It's on YouTube. You can, if you YouTube it, it's right there. And he's breaking. What are you doing? Sit down.
I'm out of here. I'm gonna go find Sacco.
Thank you for everyone for listening. I don't know what happened the last 5 minutes of the show. It all went to hell. Check us out next Friday night here on Sackheads Radio. Go to sackheadsradio.com. We're going to play all the clips, all the interviews from the Day of Resistance. You can check us out on Facebook.com/SackheadsRadio, and we are on Twitter. Thank you.
Put your pants on.
Where is he? Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Oh, my God, it never ends.
We will not be held responsible for...